Welcome to the Today's Leader podcast. Building tomorrow's best leaders, today.
Way to go, guys. Way to go. Keep it going. Good job, guys. All right, Paul, I see you. All right, John, let's finish. Josh, Coach Cole.
Great job, guys.
And it's my pleasure to welcome to the Today's Leader podcast, Building Tomorrow's Best Leaders today. Please welcome LaQuita Monley. How are you, LaQuita?
I am doing well, Coach. I'm doing well. It's really great to be here. I'm super excited and can't wait to dive into our conversation.
I'm excited too. It's not every day I get to speak with a fellow Maxwell Leadership coach. So LaQuita, share your story with the world.
So, again, my name is LaQuita Monley, and I am a John Maxwell certified speaker, coach, trainer, and facilitator. But above and beyond that, I am a military wife. My husband served 24 plus years active duty U.S. Army, and we are the proud parents of 5 amazing adult children. And now we are grandparents entering to what I have called my best phase of my life so far. And so I strongly believe that it is my role as wife, mom, and now grandmother that has equipped me to be most effective in my role as a John Maxwell leader coach and trainer, because it's those life experiences that we've had as a military family that have really prepared me and enabled me to be able to look at life from a more holistic point of view. We've had the opportunity to live in multiple states and multiple countries and just experience different cultures and ideas from different individuals around the world. And so when I decided to become a part of the John Maxwell team through that leadership and training, it really just amplified the skill set that I believe that I already have from that role as wife and mom and now grandmother. So that's just a little bit about me. I am a podcaster. I do host a podcast myself, and I am also an author. So
Yeah.
just a few things that I have going on.
So, an author. So tell me about your books.
So I have had the pleasure of being a co-author on an anthology called When Women Rise. It's all about Christian principles in business from a female's perspective. And my first solo book project is releasing on June the 4th.
All right.
And it's called, excuse me, I have a whole brain cramp because I am super excited. I just got the cover for it and everything. Like, oh my goodness. So my book project is called Redefining Success. It's 8 tools that I have used throughout my life to develop a growth mindset.
Yeah, excellent. That's awesome. So I've got 2 book projects on the go, and they both seem to be stuck at that stage of about 40%. So I know how exciting it is to when you get a book out there, and how confronting it can be, because all of a sudden you're putting yourself out there to the world, as you do as a podcast host, any sort of YouTube videos. The minute you challenge yourself and put yourself out there, it can be really quite confronting. In fact, it stops so many people, doesn't it, LaQuita?
It does. It does. It's one thing to have the information on the inside of you. It's a completely separate thing to then have that information to come up and come out and become tangible.
Yeah.
And you know, we're sitting across the table, sharing a cup of tea, having a chat with a friend or a stranger. Believe it or not, that can be more comfortable than having that conversation in the form of a podcast or in a written form. It makes you more vulnerable, and it can also cause you to have some therapeutic moments depending on what you're writing about or what you're talking about. So it does put you in a place of vulnerability. It stretches you for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Where would you say your specialty is in with leadership? So no doubt you're doing things like masterminds with leaders. You're doing coaching sessions, group sessions. Where do you specialize? So Redefining Success was the book. So I'm intrigued as to what your focus is in how best you help people or add value to people.
My main focus, and thank you so much for asking, my main focus is helping people to really hone in on their identity.
Okay.
I'm very big on identity because in my story, I by the time I turned 25, I was already a wife and a mother of five, and we had a
Yeah.
dog, and we're working on purchasing our first home. And one would think that if you have all of those things going on, you're kind of solid on who you are and what direction you want to take in life. But the honest fact is, I wasn't. I had no clue, and it's so many of us individuals that we're going in life and we're just doing the things that need to be done in order to accomplish the goals, right? But we have no idea who we are.
Yeah.
And we have no idea the things that we're passionate about and the things that add value to us as well as where we're adding value to others. And whether you're holding a leadership role within the company that you're working for, as an entrepreneur, as parents, whatever your leadership role is within the community, it's important to have and understand your identity. And when you do that, the next step is to help individuals craft out and understand, now that I know who I am, what is my purpose? What is my passion? And when those two things come together, when those two things are synergistically working together, the impossible becomes possible for an individual.
Yeah.
Your view shifts, your thought patterns shift, and literally there's nothing that you cannot do once you have those two things working synergistically together for you in your life.
Yeah, it really does help align people, that the purpose that they have and driven by passion. And there's always that third P as well, that perseverance factor that keeps us moving ahead as well.
us
So, I,
moving.
so I
Right.
really, it's a nice way that you've put it, but purpose and passion really does capture that sort of a spirit. So when we're talking about identity, do you see with the leaders that you work with, do you see the potential that they're not being themselves, that they're seeing leadership in potentially what others are expecting them to be? Is that where that is driven
Exactly.
from?
Exactly. Whether every individual on the planet at some particular point in our life, we are influenced by people, places, things, ideas, ideologies, all those great things.
Yeah,
And when we're younger and we're influenced by those things, it begins to kind of craft what we think success is.
yeah,
And we are basing our viewpoint of success. And even when there's always that individual that knows, I want to be a leader. I want to do this when I grow up, and I'm going to be the best that I can be, and I'm going to be a leader. Like, that's a passion that they have. But the whys behind it, why do you want to do this? How
yeah,
does it align with who you are and your core values? Or is it that's because what was expected of you? Or is it that's because what your culture and current pop culture, wherever you grew up at that time, right?
yeah,
Is that what was determining why you wanted to do that?
yeah,
So as we reach that space in our life where, okay, let me define what success means for me. And my journey with that started actually in an argument with my husband. Believe it or not, we were having a heated fellowship, as I like to call it. And in the midst of that heated fellowship, he said to me very clearly, "We are not the Huxtables. This is real life." And I stopped. I was like, "Oh, wait." Like, "Oh, wait a
yeah,
minute. Pause that. Let me think about what you just said."
yeah,
And I did, and I meditated on that for a very long time. And
yeah,
over many years, I've seen how that idea of what success meant as a family, and for me as an African American woman, what that meant for us, what it
yeah.
meant for me, I'd taken that on. I'd taken on that persona unconsciously and was
Yeah.
trying to live that out, so to speak. Not in
Okay.
like a toxic, unhealthy way. It was
Yeah.
just some expectations that I had weren't really realistic, because that's TV, right?
Yeah.
And so over the years, that idea of redefining what success meant to me as an individual, what success meant to my
Yeah.
husband as an individual, what it
Yeah.
meant for us in our marriage as parents. And
Yeah.
it trickled down it. And I strongly believe that, as a fellow GMTer, that personal development piece, when we're consistently working on that personal development piece, the
Yeah.
overflow or the fruit of that will show up in the other hats that we wear professionally.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. It's that growth mindset. It's that wanting to stretch. It's wanting to challenge. There's so much that gets thrown into, I guess our buckets that we continually draw from, and I always look at it as we're preparing all the time. We're preparing all the time, and it's not until you actually need the skills that you suddenly realize how good your preparation has been. And it's like, high profile, high performance athletes. It's like Olympians. It's like singers and dancers and actors. It all comes back to how we prepare. And if we're continually growing and stretching, when we need it, we're going to have the skills to work through it.
Yes.
If we haven't done that, our lives can have the potential to just fall apart. And
Yes.
and I think we've seen this during the COVID period. I've had, no doubt you would have seen it too, where some people have just put themselves in their bedroom and stayed there trying to keep the big bad world out. And then there've been other people that have been calmly negotiating everything that's come their way, whether it's been lockdowns or mandates or, whatever the process is. Some people have been very calm because they've been prepared for it. They know that collapsing inside isn't going to help them through the situation. So,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
very much so.
Okay.
So identity. So there's a lot of talk in the world about identity today, and but I'm sort of picking up it's more about authenticity with yourself and people. Their identity needs to be authentic to themselves. Have I picked that correctly,
Correct.
LaQuita?
Correct.
So one of the big things about that I see with authenticity, and yes, we want our leaders to be authentic. We want them to be vulnerable. We want them to be curious. We want them to be better. We want them to be caring. We want them to be growing. So there's all these things that a leader needs to sort of juggle in the air that authenticity model sort of looks like. But for some leaders, it means I can be natural, right? Which can be good if you're naturally empathetic and naturally caring. But if you're not, and I guess this is where the DISC model can sort of come into play here, doesn't
Yes.
it? Because if you're a natural, empathetic, caring person that really wants to help people stretch and get the best out of them, fantastic. You're one of a very select few in the world. Most people have to work on that.
We have to work on it.
So how do you? I know you're a DISC certified. You've got a DISC certification. How do you use that to help people utilize their authenticity, or be more authentic, or be more powerful as a leader?
Great question. And I utilize this with every client that I have, whether we're one-on-one coaching or in a corporate setting, and we're training and developing, because it's key. A lot of people, again, going back to what we said, a lot of people authentically don't know who they are. They think that they do, and they're not really solid on their identity. But when you put the results of that DISC assessment in front of them, and they're going through the results of that exam, of that assessment, it's very eye-opening. It's very enlightening to many individuals, and they begin for the first time to understand or who they are, why they tick the way that they tick, why do they communicate the way that they communicate, why do they receive communication in some modes better than in other modes, and especially when it comes to relating to their team members. And a lot of times where team members and staff and have been trying to convey a message to a leader and it wasn't impactful, but when that leader gets that DISC assessment results in front of them, the the desire to grow in the form and emotional intelligence is ignited. You know, now that leader is understanding themselves. They're beginning to see their team members from a different perspective as well, because as the leader, not only when a organization brings me on and partners with me, not only am I giving that assessment to the leader, but every team member gets that assessment as well. And then the leader gets briefed on their team members. And if possible, we're working through these workshops together and these exercises because it needs to be a safe space for everyone to, you know, to dialogue. And that's a lot of, oftentimes when I've come into an organization, that's the first time that an exercise like that has been done, and where the leader can actually see, okay, different is not wrong, it's simply different. And now, how do I address those differences in a way where everyone feels heard, everyone feels valued, and when everyone feels valued, then the productivity of the team increases. You don't have to ask them for it. They deliver it because now you value me. They understand you, you understand them, and you're making a commitment to whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, or however the training is going to be, to continue to do these types of exercises with understanding each other through some form of assessment. And that DISC assessment has been invaluable to the organizations that I've been blessed to be able to facilitate that with.
Yeah, it's a incredible process with the DISC profile, and there's one organization that stands out for me that I work with, and whenever they're bringing someone on, the first thing that they do as part of their induction is they get the DISC assessment of that particular person. And the whole team has just embraced it. It helps them communicate. The culture is amazing. So there's a lot of real positives in and around using that, the DISC assessment. So
one of my most recent clients is a local real estate brokerage. And one of the top brokerages in the city. And of course, you know, everybody wants to increase. And so her goal was to increase sales. She had sales targets that she wanted to meet. And she couldn't find the holes and couldn't understand why some turnover was happening, not only within her realtors that were a part of her brokerage, but also in her key team members, her actual employees. And when she and I sat down and when our official meet and greet, I was able to identify, like, if you are not an I alone, you are a very high I. And the people around you are high eyes. Y'all not getting any work done. You're not getting any work done. So, you know, giving her that assessment, because she was getting ready to go through the process of hiring another two more assistants and transaction managers and whatnot. And it was for her, it was phenomenal. Like, though in that session and throughout the several sessions that she had booked with me to come in, not only was she able to use that assessment to understand her team and to help her team understand her better, she was able to use it as what you just said in the hiring process to make sure that the people who she was plugging into key roles would actually fit those key roles and be productive. Yeah,
it's an amazing tool. Let's talk a little bit about the, because I know that you talk about unlearning. So, so part of that, I would imagine, and once again, I'm just basing this on the experience that I've had with people. And we'll go back in some ways to the concept of authenticity versus natural. So for some leaders, they may authentically have a set of values that could make them a strong leader. However, they're working in an environment where their behaviors have become automatic or perception of natural, but that environment isn't aligned with their values, as you know, whether it's a character trait or what have you. So they've created automatic behaviors of leadership that in line with the company culture, which may be toxic, when deep down their alignment is to potentially be a much stronger people leader, develop, invest, stretch, all of those things that we love to see leaders doing with their teams. In that case, I understand very clearly that that leader's got to, in many ways, unlearn the behaviors that they've become, that they associate with leadership. Is that what you talk about when it comes to unlearning?
That is a bit of what I'm talking about when it comes to unlearning, but also when, as we're growing and developing as leaders, as individuals,
Yeah.
oftentimes we have adopted personal habits that have served us in some capacity for a while. But
Yeah.
now in this new level of leadership, or in
Yeah.
this new phase of my life that I'm going to, right? This new, more future me that I'm creating. Those things that served me in my past, I have to be able to identify them that are no longer serving me, but I'm refusing to shift and change. So whether it's thoughts, behaviors, even people, that are connected to our lives, we have to begin to unlearn a lot of things that no longer serve us. And in that unlearning, it's the willingness to let it go.
Yeah.
Like you were using in that example for that toxic corporate culture. And now that served, that adapting to that would serve that leader in that corporate culture. But if that leader was to take on another leadership position at another company, start their own company, or be promoted to the CEO of the toxic company, if you want to change the culture of the company, then you have to unlearn all of those things and to slowly begin to implement new and more productive tools. And that is going to start from the top-down approach when we're looking at it from a corporate standpoint, when we're looking at it from my personal leadership perspective, because in order to be a good leader, I have to first be personally be able to lead myself. And in order to do that, I have to unlearn things that may have served me for a long time, but are now no longer serving me, and they won't do me any good in the direction that I'm going. We have to let those things go so that we can continue to move forward and to become a better version of ourselves.
Yeah. So it's about giving permission to let things go, isn't it, as well?
It is.
So
and identifying the fact that it doesn't serve us
it
anymore.
no longer serves us, because it's easy for someone to identify if they've developed bad habits or bad behaviors. That's an easier process because we can say, I know it's bad, but I do it. And so, okay, you've identified it's bad. We're halfway there to being able to shift it. But when it's something that's actually served us, it may even have served us well in that whatever place in life. But as we continue to go up, we've got to, in the words of John, to go up, we've got to give up. So there's things that we've got to give up. And in this case, it's maybe something that served us well. Maybe it's someone that was a close person that at peer level that you used to bounce ideas off. And then you're taking the next step in your career, and that person, for whatever reason, is stuck where they are. And it seems horrible to say, but you're still going to be friends and you're still going to be acquaintances. But you're not going to have the relationship that you had previous.
Exactly.
So, and the world shifts, so we've got to unlearn. So how do you help people unlearn those behaviors that have actually served them relatively well to get to where they are?
Yeah. That takes multiple sessions, to be honest, because the person has to first identify it.
Yeah.
And going and helping them to identify it. It was really a series of questions crafted to make them look within themselves, to cause them to look within themselves, ask themselves the hard questions, and be honest in those answers. Like, for instance, the individual you're saying they're on the entry level, the P level, and they've been with you from the bottom level to, say, mid-level management, but you're looking to move into that C-suite. You've been identified, and you're looking to move into that C-suite, and you're capable and you're ready, and that person isn't. So we're not gonna, and we have that conversation around that individual. How can that individual serve you well in where you're going? And how can you continue to serve that individual?
Yeah.
Right? Because if I'm continuing in an upward mobility and they've decided to bottom out at a mid-level, there's nothing wrong with that. That's their personal life decision, and it's what makes them happy. But they can't help you get to where you're going. And if you're consistently having conversation at the level that you're currently occupying, it's soon going to cause more friction in that relationship.
Yeah.
So, not saying cut them off forever, but just identify where they need to be at in your life. What role they are to serve.
Yeah, and in many ways, like, it can sound really horrible that we're leaving people behind on the journey, and at the end of the day, you never leave a person behind if you've made an impact, if you've added value, if you've been that true peer, confident, potentially even a coach. I mean, there are a number of people in my journey that we were at peer level, but it was almost like a coaching relationship as we were moving through. So you've always made that impact. You're always going to be sitting there with a genuine impact in their heart. And it's not like you're going to brush them when you walk down the street. That's not what we're talking about at all. If you see them at a barbecue, of course you're going to go up and say hi and how's your whatever football team that you support going and all. You're still going to have that.
And have fun.
Absolutely. You're still going to have that relationship. But it's about choosing, like, if you continually at that higher level go back to be with that person in that sort of a relationship, that's probably not going to serve you well in the long term. So, and it's about leaders absolutely identifying that. Let's talk about role models. So role modeling is really, really strong for leaders and for people to be coming through their leadership journey. So who's been a role model for you in your leadership journey, and who's inspired you?
So in my leadership journey, actually the most influential individual in my life has been my former pastor's wife, actually.
Okay.
Just, she was the model of what I would consider excellence, if you will. Her story and her journey as a military wife, same as I was, and pursuing her education and motherhood simultaneously, and going into the corporate world and then coming out as an entrepreneur. So many things about her story that when I met her and was learning her story, I was like, wow, I want to do that. I need to know her. And she made herself available to me. At that time, I wasn't a member of her church. I didn't even want to go to church. It was the last thing on my mind. She owned a salon, and I was actually at the salon to get my hair done. She owned it. My stylist worked in it, and she would have these amazing conversations with me every time I came in. And one day I asked the question, I said, hey, this is where I am. We don't have the proverbial pot or window, but this is what I want to do. I wanted to, at that time, I wanted to be a real estate investor, and I knew that they were as well, her and her husband. I asked her, would you teach me what you know? And she made me a deal. She said, I tell you what, my free time is after lunch every day. So if you'll come down at that time for about an hour, you have your questions ready, I'll answer the questions, and we can go from there.
Yeah.
So I was like, wow, okay, let's do that. And that's what I did. And a lot of people often ask, well, what did you do? Did you have to help her clean up? Or, what did you have to put the shop back together? That's not her personality type. She's a strong D. You are not helping her do that. I was only to ask the questions, but what she wanted me to do when I came back was to show her what I did with the information that she gave me. And that's what started our mentor relationship. And that was in 2002. And we still have that mentor relationship today. Eventually, we did join their church, eventually. But she has, by and large, been the most influential mentor in my life, because she was willing to meet me where I was and to give me, spoon feed me what I needed to become the person that I wanted to be.
That's a great story. And I'm visualizing that high D. And I'm visualizing the fact that you were very prepared with your questions every time you got there. So
Every
really
time.
making the most.
Yes. Making the most out of it, because her time was precious. And I wanted to honor her time. We didn't have, like I said, it was at a time in our life we didn't have the pot or the window. So I couldn't afford to learn it anywhere else. Going back to uni at that time wasn't ideal, because my youngest was still an infant, and my husband was in Iraq. It wasn't there was no time for me to go to uni to learn this stuff that I needed to learn. And she was giving me something that was very valuable. So I had to make sure that I was prepared every time that we met.
And there's a really good lesson there for every leader that's listening to this, because if you do have a mentor that is investing in you, that's pouring in you, there is a need for you to be prepared and ready to go, so that you are for yourself, that you're maximizing the impact of the mentorship, but you're not wasting their time. Because, especially if you're a high D, if you're sitting down with a high D and expecting the mentoring relationship to work, and you've done no work preparing before you go in, that relationship is not going to work.
No, it's not.
So
It's not.
it's that whole concept of preparing beforehand.
And I'm in high I.
So you want to chat.
I want to chat. I want to chat. And my husband is a DC a mix. And of course, at that time, I had no idea what it was. But her personality reminded me a lot of my husband's personality. And so it's like, okay, I know when I talk with her, it's got to be dress right, dress, as the Army says. It's got to have the I's dotted and the T's crossed. I've got to be prepared, because she's going to have questions for my questions. And I need to have an answer when I need to be prepared. So I'm really grateful for that my husband and Pastor Danielle have that similar personality, because it prepared me to be prepared for her mentorship.
And then when you did the DISC certification, you then joined all the dots.
The dots were able to come together. It's like, all right, yes, that makes sense.
When we talk about great leadership in the world, what are some of the traits that you see that leaders need today?
A couple of the biggest things that I see that leaders need today is that self-leadership. Self-leadership. Unfortunately, just my perspective, we don't have a lot of personal responsibility. Like, personal responsibility isn't the thing to have. Even in leaders, a lot of leaders are blame shifting in some aspects. And so that level of self-leadership and personal responsibility, and understanding the power and the influence that you have as leaders over the lives of the people who are connected to you. Having that self-leadership and emotional intelligence and effective communication with the active listening component. Those things working together, that to me makes a leader a great leader, because when those things are working together and the leader is consistently seeking growth in those areas, what they're reproducing and the types of leaders that they are reproducing are leaders that are definitely making the mark. They want to reproduce other leaders like themselves, because when those things are working together in my life, I understand the necessity of producing other leaders that can do what I do and do it better.
So important. Now, no one's journey is ever a straight line to success. We know that. There's going to be the inevitable troughs that we face. We get some amazing highs as we go through that. But along the journey, there's this little thing that pops up every now and again that we may perceive as failure. You know, something didn't work out quite as well. You know, whatever it may look like in what it is that we do, we sometimes sense that we're failing. So tell me about your relationship with failure.
You know, failure was a bedfellow of mine for a long time. You know,
Yeah.
you know, it's and what changed for me is when I began to change the way that I think about failure.
Yeah.
You know, failure as defined, it's going to happen to everybody at numerous points in our lives as long as we draw breath. For me, my first really serious dealings with failure happened to me as a teenager. I met my husband when I was 15 and he was 17, and shortly a year or so afterwards we became parents. And that was one of the biggest failures of my life. But it wasn't the end of my story. You know, so as teenage parents, we had a lot of choices to make, and we had to grow up very quickly. Because now we had a son to raise, and still growing up ourselves and the choices that we were going to make. We were blessed that we came from some very strong foundations, and with his parents and my parents, and through their leadership and their guidance, we are here today. You know, and still thriving and growing, and the Monley compound is increasing daily. So I had to change the way that I saw that, and I was having a conversation where I thought failure was it, and it's like, you know, all of my dreams are gone. I wanted to play basketball in uni, I wanted to run track in uni, and I wanted to be a lawyer, I wanted to be all of those things. And now as a teenage mom, wow, all of that's done. And there was a social worker in my life that asked me a question. She said, "Who told you that it was over? Who told you that your chapter, that your book was done?" And she looked at me and she said, "Baby girl, you're just getting started in life. It's going to be harder than what you initially planned. But if you guys continue to work together the way that you're doing, you can still accomplish everything that you wanted to accomplish in life. You just have to be willing to work a little harder to get it." And that shifted. That was the beginning of me shifting the way that I think. She said that to me. She came out and did home visits with my parents, and my husband's parents are also, we're from the South. Everybody's active. There's no such thing as parents not being active. You know, parents being active in that bad decision that we made after the fact, right? They're very active in making sure we are making good decisions moving forward. And she said that same thing in a conversation in a family home visit. And everybody was like, "Okay, this is what we have to do. This is what's going to happen, and we're going to make it happen." Now, I've had a lot of failures since then. I've had a lot of failures since then. But shifting the way that I think about it. Failure is not final. It's not fatal. It's not final. It's not the last chapter in your story. It's a learning curve. It's a learning curve.
Once again, that's just such a great lesson, and one of the lessons for the leaders that are listening, that failure is not fatal. It's not the final. It is if you let it be.
It is if you let it.
And once again, strength comes in our ability to make choices. So we choose to learn, we choose to get up, we choose to work a bit harder to make sure that, you know, our next attempt's going to be maybe a better one. So what about your vision for yourself, LaQuita? What does that look like?
So my vision for myself, I see myself within the next 5 years continuing to speak and continuing to coach, but coaching and developing other leaders and other coaches specifically. Where my husband and I are not brand new in ministry, but we're getting ready to launch our first church. And so we want to use that as a leadership hub to train and develop other leaders, to be able to go out and live life in their most authentic way, but with the main mission of being people builders.
Yeah.
We're really big on being people builders. From teenage parents to where we are now, having, lived abroad and spoken on international stages, owning businesses, that's a far cry from the 15 and 17-year-old or 16 and 18-year-old parents that we started out as.
Yeah,
And
very much so.
people built us along the way, and so we believe that it's our mission, it's our purpose to continue to build individuals who would allow us to help them and partner with them.
Yeah, that's just beautiful, and it's nice that it's so powerful when we see people with purpose knowing or having a really strong belief that this is what they're going to do, and I've got no doubt that that's going to happen. So if someone wants to connect with you and join you in their journey, and how can they do that, LaQuita?
They can reach out to me on social media. I'm on most of the major social media platforms. So if you were to just Google my name, LaQuita Monley, that's LaQuita. My surname is Monley, Monley. You'll see all things LaQuita Monley pop up. Hopefully the first thing you see in the Google search engine, if the SEO gods love me, is my website, which is LaQuitaMonley.com. Fill out the contact us form, and I will be more than happy to get back with you within 48 hours. If you reach out to me on social media, send me a message, and I am the person that handles the social media, and I will reach out to you within 48 hours with a response.
Thanks. Excellent, and I'll make sure I've got those links in the show notes. LaQuita, it's been amazing speaking with you today, and thank you so much for investing in today's leaders.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's definitely been my pleasure being here. I love the conversation. Just been really great energy. So thank you so much for allowing me to be a guest on your show.
Excellent. Thank you. If you're looking to build better leadership skills, check out the Today's Leader website at todaysleader.com.au. We really are driving a leadership revolution to build tomorrow's best leaders today. Today's Leader is a collective, the mindset to make a difference, the ability to create an impact. Think and Grow Business hosts our Today's Leader Mastermind. Think and Grow Business, where we focus on personal, professional, and business growth. Book your free 30-minute discovery call right from the homepage at thinkandgrowbusiness.com.au. Don't forget, wherever you are standing stronger, braver, and wiser. Don't forget the golden rule. Don't be an arsehole. I'll see you all again next week. Bye for now.